unreal, surreal election we have ever seen.
We have a new name for the coronavirus. The World Health Organization has officially called it COVID-19.
Lines crossing the Bloomberg terminal right now that Elon Musk has agreed to buy Twitter for $54.20 a share in cash.
The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York has confirmed the arrest of FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried in the Bahamas.
Smart people doing stupid things to incompetence or haste, but this one just, it doesn't make sense. First, the facts. Balenciaga is one of the world's most expensive clothing brands.
Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein remains behind bars today on
abuse of underage girls. Prosecutors say that she recruited and groomed 4 times.
As you and I well remember, the president was impeached, President Trump was impeached. No Republicans voted in the House.
With me now. And so, Philip, what's the latest thing that we're getting on the Russian attacks in Ukraine?
Well, day 2.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Badlands Daily. I am one of the hosts, John, and I'm here with Brian. Brian, we missed you yesterday, man. How was your weekend?
It was great, man. I had a nice, relaxing weekend. Got to spend some time on the water doing some fishing. Man, I hooked myself in the leg. Oh, my goodness. Like, barb, like, all the way in, treble hook, and I'm sitting there for, like, half an hour just debating yanking that thing out.
Oh, no. What'd you do?
I ended up getting it out. I was able to finagle it out, and it was relatively painless, believe it or not. It didn't hurt much. I got a nice bruise and a little piercing in my shin now, but I've never done that before in my life, man. Been fishing my whole life and just whipped it out. I got snagged on a tree, whipped it out, and it came flying back and just stuck right in my leg, man.
Gosh, that sounds so painful.
Yeah, my wife took videos of it and everything. My buddy was there, and he was trying to tell me. He's like, "I'll just pull it out, man." I'm like, "No, let me play with this thing for a couple minutes." And
that's rough. Did you catch anything else besides your own leg?
Yeah, we caught a bunch of bass. This is like fisherman's paradise, man. My buddy's boat ramp next to his house. If you go to the left, you fish saltwater. If you go to the right, you fish freshwater. And I've fished freshwater and salt my whole life, but I prefer fresh. So we caught some bass on Saturday, and then we caught a couple redfish on Sunday. So good weekend.
That's awesome. Were you out like camping, or is it just within driving distance of your house?
No, my buddy lives like 2 minutes from the boat ramps up there in Crystal River. It's just north of Tampa. Beautiful place up there, absolutely gorgeous. And so we got to spend some time up there, and just stayed at his house and relaxed. He's out in the woods. He's got 10 acres to himself, so just kind of enjoying peace and tranquility.
Awesome, man. Well, cool. Well, let's before we get into the news here, guys, let's quick talk about our first sponsor of the show. Let me pull up. Oh, I don't even have it pulled up here. Hold on. I got to pull up a new picture because we got our list of speakers for the GART, the Great American Restoration Tour, which is brought to us by Furman. Furman, guys, they're a company. They're based in Arizona. They got about 50 Arizona employees. They sell generators. Go to FurmanPowerEquipment.com. Use promo code Badlands to get 17% off of your order. Furman was kind enough to help pay for the travel. That's what their sponsorship money is going for, to get everybody there. And the list of speakers right now is myself, Kate, CanCon, Brian, Zach, Burning Bright, Just Human, Chris Paul, Patrick Gunnels, Brad Getz, Jordan Sather, Justin Deschamps, Ryan DeLarme, G Money, Patriots in Progress, Alpha Warrior, Sean Morgan, Joshua Reed, and then Absolute 1776. Plus, we're potentially working on a few surprise guests. If you haven't gotten your tickets yet to the Great American Restoration Tour, go to badlandsmedia.net, or you can get your virtual tickets this Thursday, I believe at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to do our first kind of private live stream just for ticket holders. So whether that's in person or virtual, we're going to be doing a little private live stream. We're going to take calls, a lot more personal and engaged with the audience. So get your tickets, badlandsmedia.net. And thank you to Furman for helping get our speakers there. We appreciate that. And we appreciate you guys for helping our sponsors. That's how you can help support us as well. So let's get into the news, man.
All right. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I know you guys missed me yesterday. I tuned in for a little bit and caught you and Patrick. We get terrible reception out there, so I had to back out. But as I always like to do, I start out with, kind of paying tribute to those who may or may not have been duped. The elephant in the room, the vaccines that were mandated on so many people, and the tragic died suddenlies that we're seeing across the world right now. So this one here, 42-year-old former U.S. swimming champ dies in Virgin Islands after being found on floor. 42-year-old former high school swimming sensation Jemay Kale, who won a gold medal in the 1997 Pan Pacific Championship, was pronounced dead soon after being found by her boyfriend on the floor of their residence in the U.S. Virgin Islands just after midnight last Tuesday. Police are still investigating her death. And then we have another one here. 31-year-old former Mets minor league pitcher Matt Poberyeko, I hope I'm saying that right, Poberyeko, dies suddenly of a heart attack. Former New York Mets minor league pitcher Matt Poberyeko died suddenly from a heart attack last weekend. He was 31 years old. MLB insider Hector Gomez announced the news of his passing on Sunday. Quote, former Mets minor league pitcher Matt Poberyeko passed away at the age of 31. He had pitched in the Mexican League and Dominican Winter League this offseason, so he was still, an active, player at the time. And
These
then
are former professional athletes.
Well, this guy was still technically a professional athlete. I mean, he was playing minor league ball still. It's not like he was no longer playing, so he was still in very good shape. And the 42-year-old swimmer, before living in the U.S. Virgin Islands, I'm sure she kept up with physical fitness and everything. Somebody like that goes to the Virgin Islands, I know what they're doing there, man. They're surfing, and I got a lot of friends here in Florida that transplanted to some of these islands, and that's what they do. They live a different life than what we live here in the United States. More of a tranquil life, so to speak. But then I want to jump into another story that we talked about last week. Family confirms that 28-year-old actor who died suddenly had complications with his heart. Now, this is Jansen Panettiere, which is Hayden Panettiere's brother. Hayden Panettiere was famous for, I think she was in what was the Remember the Titans? She was the little girl in Remember the Titans. Went on to have a pretty good acting career after that, as well as her brother. Well, when we talked about this last week, I had mentioned that it may have been suicide because he had a lot of problems with mental instability and that kind of thing, and depression, and he was battling all that. Well, no, I was wrong. It is confirmed now that it was actually hearts. It says Jansen Panettiere. Their family has confirmed that the 28-year-old actor died suddenly due to cardiomegaly. I can't say that word. Cardiomegaly, and an aortic valve complication. It says, quote, though it offers little solace, the medical examiner reported Jansen's sudden passing was due to cardiomegaly. I'm sure there's
whatever. Cardio something.
Which is an enlarged heart, coupled with aortic valve complications. So it's exactly what we've been seeing with the myocarditis, pericarditis, the inflammation, the enlarged heart, and all that stuff. So, just more prayers for those people out there that took the vaccine. We're praying that, everybody's safe, but unfortunately, the elephant in the room, you can't ignore it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too with these, especially these, a lot of these athletes and Hollywood especially. I mean, I doubt there's many people in Hollywood that did not take the vaccine. The pressure and all the gaslighting and propaganda that came out of Hollywood over COVID was, it was insane. So we're still kind of assuming a little bit that that's what happened here, but it's a pretty safe assumption based on what we've seen and what we know. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. And so while I was on vacation, I did do a little bit of work. And if you guys may have seen this, who's that? I don't know who that ugly guy is up there on the very first little thumbnail right there, but he's got a wicked looking beard, man. I do dig his beard. But I tuned in with, I joined Emerald Robinson for about 10 minutes on Monday morning. It aired at noon, talking about Maricopa County's logic and accuracy testing and the fact that they most likely did not perform a logic and accuracy test at all, which would have caught the 19 to 20 inch ballot discrepancy that cost Kerry Lake, Abe Hamada, Mark Fincham, perhaps, oh my goodness, what was the other, the senator, what was his name? Not JD Vance. Not JD Vance. He's out there in Ohio.
Oh, you said Abe.
What was, I can't remember his name. Not Blake Masters. Was it Blake Masters?
It was Masters. Yeah.
Yeah. Blake Masters. Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so I joined Emerald to talk about that. And then immediately following me was Cara Castronuovo, another Gateway writer, talking about, the J6 and everything that's going on out there. So, All right, let's jump into this next story here from ABC News. Judge overseeing Trump Georgia grand jury speaks after 4 persons controversial interview. So you guys have seen this going on. This Emily Kors, this crazy individual.
She's insane, dude.
She just looks like, I was going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show, but let me just pull it up real quick. I think they got a picture of her in Mexico right here. That looks like Emily Kors up there, I think.
There's 2 of them. I didn't see there was one with.
Yeah, there's 2. We're going to get into this, but yeah, we're going to get into that. But anyways, let's jump into this story about Emily Kors. After the 4-person, the Fulton County, Georgia grand jury investigating former President Donald Trump and a push to overturn the 2020 election spoke out in several headline-making interviews, the judge overseeing the case told ABC News on Monday that the jurors, quote, can talk about the final report, end quote. But Judge Robert C. McBurney noted that the matter can get, quote unquote, problematic if jurors start to, quote, synthesize the testimony, end quote, and the group's thoughts on it. McBurney said in an interview that the grand jury submitted its report in January. He held a quote unquote farewell session at the request of the district attorney in which he, quote, reminded them of their oath, which a statutory obligation that they not discuss with anyone outside the group their deliberations. That's the one word that's in the oath, end quote. It's a little vague on the quote there. But McBurney emphasized that, quote, it's important for people to understand that the witness testimony is not deliberations, end quote. He says, quote, I explained you don't want to talk about what the group discussed about the witness's testimony, but you can talk about the witness testimony itself, I guess. You could talk about things that the assistant DA told you. And then finally, you can talk about the final report because that is the product of your deliberations. But it's not your deliberations. So you can talk about what the deliberations resulted in, but you can't talk about what they said to figure out the product of that. That doesn't make much sense.
None of this makes sense. I mean, this lady is nuts. We kind of talked about it a little bit on Basis Conspiracies last night. They even did an SNL skit on her, which was pretty dang funny. But the fact that she's out there speaking like this, I almost believe they allowed this to happen because they knew they weren't going to get Trump out of this. And so this is a way that they can say that they tainted the result by her going out speaking and doing her little interview tour with the mainstream media. But it's not a good look. She's clearly vindictive. She clearly has bias against Trump, like basically out here saying, I hope he gets indicted. I hope they do something. That shows clear bias, which you shouldn't have as the lead juror, the 4-person on a grand jury. I mean, it's nuts, man. Like this is who we're supposed to trust to give a fair, trial and investigation into what happened in Georgia. I mean, we weren't going to get that regardless. The entire investigation was biased, but it's ridiculous.
But here's the crazy thing, John, is the judge goes on to say that you can talk about the witness testimony, you can talk about the reports and the product of the reports and everything else. But guess what? The report's sealed. You can't talk about the reports. We can't read the reports. So now the only thing that apparently we might be able to get is this 4-woman who, has shown a clear bias. We can get her interpretation of the witness testimony and the product of the report, but we can't get anything else. I mean, this is a little bit insane. And if they're going to come down and put out perjury charges against, I think they set up to a dozen individuals that have been examined or taken depositions throughout this process. If they can charge 12 people with that, but we're not allowed to see the report. I mean, we are talking about a federal case here involving a former president of the United States who is running again in 2024, obviously. And, this is going to have big implications on that campaign. And here we are protecting this. I don't know if they're just going to kick the can down the road until, just before the election and then probably, dump some big story about how they're going to indict Trump, right before November of 2024, just to kind of, we want to make sure the FBI and the federal government can continue influencing elections the way they have the last 3 or 4.
Honestly, I'm not even worried. I think if they would have had something on Trump out of this, it would have been leaked. They would have had a huge press conference. They would have had, all sorts of bells and whistles on that thing. But regardless of what happens here, she just completely set up the grounds for appeal, like just based on her bias in interviews. So no matter what happens out of this, I'm honestly not concerned. It's just more politicization. Did I say that? I don't think I said that right.
Politicization.
Whatever. We're not grammar kings here at Badlands Media. We are your everyday average Joes who don't know how to say big words. But on top of that, it's just the narrative that they're trying to put forth, right? Trump has been under investigation for a long time. They've been trying to get Trump, and they've been promising arrests forever. And I mentioned this last night on the show too. We feel like we've been waiting forever for Durham and these like big arrests to happen from the Durham investigation and all sorts of stuff, the crimes that, previous administrations have done. I mean, technically the left has been waiting longer for indictments of Trump because the media has been promising them longer that Trump is going to jail based on his actions, whether it's from Russiagate to whatever. They've been waiting longer than we have, and yet that stuff never comes to fruition. We have a legitimate, case with Special Counsel Durham that I think will, net some results and some arrests as we continue to move forward and get more stuff from him. So it's just kind of interesting, the dichotomy there, that we're both waiting, for the opposite sides of it to have arrests. Which one's legitimate, which one's not.
Well, and the craziest thing about this grand jury in Fulton County is that there's two big things that they keep ignoring. I've talked about this many times. They ignore everything leading up, everything from the day of election on is subject to their grand jury, but they're ignoring everything that actually happened in Coffee County and in Fulton County on election day and leading up to election day. So it's like they have such a narrow window as to what they're actually looking for here, and they're going after these individuals after the fact of the election, but ignoring everything that happened on election day, for one. For two, the big thing that they're using in this is that Brad Raffensperger phone call. And according to Garland Favorito of voterga.org, they have very strong evidence that I think she's the Assistant Secretary of State, Jordan Fuchs. I don't know if you say it, how you say her last name. Fuchs. We'll just say Fuchs. Jordan Fuchs.
The other way, but
well, I usually do go the other way, but we are speaking to a large crowd. There may be sensitive ears listening, so we'll keep that down. But anyways, there's evidence that suggests that she recorded the phone call in Florida, and if that's the case, Trump did not consent to that being recorded. That is inadmissible in court. So the entire grand jury may be null and void based on illegally obtained evidence. So lots of things that are going to be coming out of this, but who knows if we're actually going to get any proper investigation into where she was when she recorded this. I think it's a she, right? She's a she. Yeah.
I don't know. Speaking of Georgia and elections, did you see that Stacey Abrams is in Nigeria right now helping to run their elections?
It's so funny you said that, because last week I had a story up about somebody that was running for office in Nigeria for I guess it's the presidency or whatever they call it over there. That is a populist. That is a kind of along the same give the voice back to the people kind of Trumpism that we've seen over the last 6 years. And it's so funny that you just brought that up. I haven't seen that, but I'll have that ready to go.
Let me show you a couple things here. I got
sure. I took that out of my show, I think, on Friday. So that's crazy that Stacey Abrams is over there now.
Yep. So she's in Nigeria right now, and there's some posts out here, but a couple ones she posted at 4th polling location in Abuja, observing with NDI and IRI Global. Conversation overheard. We have the right to be heard. And we will make our leaders listen. Democracy in essence and in action. And then hashtag Nigeria decides 2023. A couple more pictures, and I actually have a video I'm going to play here quick too. It's about a minute and a half long, but she's doing a little interview over there. Let me pull this up.
Far at the different polling stations you have visited here in Abuja.
I would say that despite a slow start with the BVAS, we have seen orderly lines, we have seen long lines signaling strong enthusiasm, but we've also seen a great deal of cooperation and a very peaceful conversation among voters. They want to be heard, and they are willing to stand in line and have patience because they know that's their path to progress.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things that I have observed the past few days, this huge contingent of youth voters that many believe will really play a significant role in this election. And the people that we've been speaking with have said they believe there will be high turnout today. You, of course, are well known in the United States for your activism, for being a political figure, an author, somebody who has done so much to try to expand voting rights. From the conversations that you have had, especially with youthful voters here in Nigeria, what is the takeaway?
Well, I've had a chance to speak with Yaga and with a number of youth voters across the state. And what they've said almost uniformly is they want to be heard. They believe progress is possible. They believe that more is possible. They understand that they are the most assailed by unemployment, that the challenges they face are real, but that so is the opportunity for change. What we've tried to have a conversation about, though, is the caution that not every election turns out the way you want, but that the responsibility is to show up and try to shape the future as much as you can.
Wow.
Nuts, man.
Yeah. And then you just remember, like, every time I hear somebody like Stacey Abrams speaking, all I can think of is John Bolton when he confessed on CNN that the CIA fixes elections elsewhere, but of course not in America. We don't fix elections in America, but Bolton knows what it takes to fix an election.
We
And
would never do that here. Even
Never.
though Stacey Abrams, didn't she have 800,000 ballots or something ready to go for the runoff election in 2020?
That is nuts, man. That is absolutely nuts. Of all the people, like, if you see anybody from America coming over there and they have an Act Blue designation, you definitely need to be weary of them going over there. That's crazy, man.
Yeah,
that's crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this next story here. Vermont girls basketball team forfeits state tournament game due to a trans player on the opposing team. Now, this is really interesting. Yeah, absolutely. And good for them doing this on a game that was significant. This is in the state tournament. So this is, look, a lot of these girls are going to be upset because they're not going to have the opportunity to compete for a state title. But, sometimes you got to put, you got to stand up for what you believe in, and that's what they're doing right here. It says Mid Vermont Christian School forfeited their upcoming Division IV state tournament game due to an opposing team having a biological male on the girls' team. MVCS head of school Vicky Fogg told Valley News, quote, "We believe playing against an opponent with a biological male jeopardizes the fairness of the game and the safety of our players." Fogg would go on to share, quote, "Allowing biological males to participate in women's sports sets a bad precedent for the future of women's sports in general." Now, if you come down here to the bottom of this article from Gateway Pundit, the Vermont Principals Association, which serves as the governing body for the athletics in the state of Vermont, has previously ruled that students can play on any team that, quote, "matches their gender identity used at school," end quote. The Gateway Pundit previously reported a high school girls volleyball team was banned from their own locker room after they refused to share it with a biological male. And like, that's not an understatement. Like, the girls were literally not allowed to go into their own locker room because there was a biological male, and they objected to him being able to shower with them and all that. And look, he's not transitioned. It's not like, he went and this is it's crazy where we're at in this world right now, John.
There's all like the women's rights Me Too people with this stuff. I mean, this is clearly an attack on women's rights, and this does not advance the women's movement, allowing men to play women's sports, biological males, yet they're silent. They're dead silent.
You know how like Elon Musk talked about how, like, he's still here in the middle, like he leans Democrat, but like now he feels like he's more Republican because he's not changing. The line itself is moving further to the left. Bill Maher said the same thing. He said he's still a classic liberal, but the margin is moving so far to the left that he feels, almost like he's a Republican in a sense. And that's what we're seeing right here, where classic feminists who, 10 years ago, conservatives would be like, take that pink hat off. We know what the pink hat was. Take that pink hat off, that kind of stuff. And now it's at the point where classic feminists are looking at what's going on and being like, this is not what we fought for. The classic gay and lesbian crowd, same thing with the transgenderism. They're like, this is not what we fought for. A friend of mine, Sarah Higdon, was on Timcast last week talking about this exact thing. She's a transgender Army captain, and she's saying that this is not what this should not be happening. Kids should not be transitioning. They should not be exposed to this in schools and all that. But I want to come back to real quick. I want to come back to this clip right here. Do you remember this, John? This was a transgender female, I guess, playing volleyball in high school. And watch this spike. It's going to take place right down here at the bottom right of the screen. Right here. That girl was knocked out. She had neck issues. I think she sprained her neck or something, concussion, all sorts of issues. This is why, you can't have, I know there's probably some, ultra feminists out there that might get upset about this, but you can't have males competing against females. You just can't. physiologically completely different. And it's not fair to females.
100%. And like the arguments against that don't make any sense to me. They really don't. It's proven. It's scientifically proven that males have an advantage in physical activity like that. And it's clearly unfair and it's not safe. And yeah, so props to that Virginia team for backing out of that tournament. I mean, I remember back to my high school days, those state tournament games, they were, that's what you work for all season. And you forfeit a game like that based on, I mean, it's the right thing to do, based on your principles. Props to them for real.
Yep. And then real quick, we got one other story on this issue. Santa Monica Malibu School District to discuss bylaw changes to hide gender change from parents, open girls sports to boys. The meeting and Zoom info is all down below. Now, look, if you're in California around this school district, you might want to weigh in on this because guess what? This breeds like a virus and it will take over this school and then the next school district and then the next school district. And they'll use that as justification for doing this in one school district and then the next one and then the next one. So on Monday night from 7 to 9, the Health and Safety District Advisory Committee is meeting to discuss bylaw changes that would allow Santa Monica Malibu school districts to hide student gender change information from parents. That should be the end of that. I mean, can you imagine a school district? This is what socialism is, folks. This is what communism is. This is the state thinking that they know better for your children than you. And not only that they know better for your children than you, that they can conceal that information from you. Can you imagine your kids going to school and being indoctrinated by something and the teachers telling them, don't tell your mommy and daddy, don't tell your parents what we're doing to you. They won't understand. They make you look like the bad person. This is absolutely nuts right there.
Absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump into this story right here. Top GOP donors to meet with GOP candidates for president. But guess what? President Trump's not invited. According to a report by an objective and non-biased, those are in quotes and sarcasm, Yahoo journalist who wrote the book Piety and Power, Mike Pence and the Taking of the White House, there's an event this weekend in Southern Florida. Now, of course, this already took place. And if I was down here, I might have actually went to this because I'm in this area. The Club for Growth, a leading conservative campaign group, will host almost all of the top 2024 Republican prospects for president at a donor retreat in South Florida this weekend, except Donald Trump, according to a Republican familiar with the plans. Newly minted candidates Nikki Haley, the former UN ambassador, Vivek Ramaswamy, the pharmaceutical magnate turned conservative influencer, will headline the meeting. Top Republicans who have not declared their candidacies but are seriously eyeing bids, including making all the moves of a shadow campaign, are also expected to attend the event, including Governor Ron DeSantis, former Vice President Mike Pence, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu. And then listen to this last paragraph, John. The only declared candidate not attending is former President Donald Trump. Trump, who helped spark the January 6, 2021 insurrection with his 2020 election lies and is widely blamed for the GOP's poor showing in the 2022 midterms, was not invited to the donor retreat. The Republican source told Yahoo News the retreat is being held in Palm Beach, where Trump lives in his Mar-a-Lago estates. So
I have lots of issues with this. I mean, Nikki Haley doesn't have a chance. This Vivek, whatever his name is,
Swami.
It's interesting. Like people seem to almost be, pushing his candidacy a little bit. It's kind of weird, like applauding his candidacy. And I think he's a terrible choice. Look, let me show you something here. This right when he announced, I dug through his Twitter for like just 10 minutes. That's it. And I found a bunch of issues. This is one of the biggest issues I have. This is his stance on wearing a mask. Wearing a mask equals personal responsibility. It's puzzling when conservatives oppose it. Before deriding them, remember this. CDC and WHO discouraged wearing masks in March, a noble lie to save masks for healthcare workers, institutional lie, and erodes public trust, whatever. He's right about the line, but wearing a mask is personal responsibility. It's puzzling when conservatives oppose it. He is saying personal responsibility is more important than your personal freedom.
Yep.
That is an issue. I wouldn't want this guy anywhere near control of the presidency because he will put what he considers somebody's responsibility above your freedom, and that is never okay. And then he also has these terrible comments. Oh, right here he does have this. My policy views don't often align with Bernie, but this strikes me as a sensible idea. And this is buying masks for everybody nationwide. Everybody should be wearing masks again. So, but here, He says, um, fortunately, Trump's egregious behavior last week blinds us from seeing that big text. He's basically saying Trump's January 6th behavior was egregious. And then what Trump did last week was wrong, downright abhorrent, plain and simple. Uh, and we know that's a lie. Everything they say about Trump and what he did on January 6th is a lie. And this guy's just pushing mainstream media talking points, leftist talking points to, deride Trump over J6. It's BS. I'm not a fan of that guy in his candidacy.
Well, here's my problem with him is like you have, he is a former pharmaceutical executive and a magnate, as they called him in that article. And here's the thing, like I would be okay with this if he was like the whistleblower of the pharmaceutical industry. He came out and was like, no vaccines. You can't trust these vaccines. This is not safe. Don't take this. You should be taking ivermectin. If he was a proponent like that, if he bucked against the system and went that way, I'd be like, okay, maybe we should be listening to this guy and giving him something to talk about. But the fact that, like you brought up, he's pro-mask, he's attacking the mandates and saying that people that don't do it are being irresponsible, despite there being absolutely no scientific evidence that the masks work at stopping the spread on this. That right there tells me that this guy is not the whistleblower, the pushback. I always say that the recently converted Democrat converted to conservatism is usually your strongest proponent. But in this case, he is a conservative on paper, but he's not doing anything that pushes in that direction, especially regarding the pharmaceutical industry. And with all these rumors going around, I mean, everywhere you go, it's like the next pandemic. What are we going to do in the next pandemic? Do you really want a guy that worked for big pharma and is not even the least bit apologetic for it? Do you really want him making policy if we run into another pandemic that is apparently imminent? No.
And on top of that too, we have Ronna McDaniel. I don't know if you're going to get into this, but Ronna McDaniel, yesterday we covered a little bit on the show. She's basically trying to get all the RNC candidates to do a pledge, like whoever gets the nomination, you have to pledge that you will back and support them. And because I think they're going to try, the rhinos and the left and everybody, the establishment, they're going to try to get Trump to lose the primary so that they don't even have him running against, running in the presidency. I bet they steal from him. I bet they're going to try. And so the fact that they're coming out now pushing this, you need to do a pledge that if you don't win the nomination, you will support whoever does. That's their like laying that groundwork to steal it, get somebody like DeSantis or whoever to win. And then they expect Trump to come in and endorse him when it is Trump's party. This is Trump's party. Trump has the nomination and should have the nomination until he passes the torch.
Yep. I agree.
That's my stance on it.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I do think they are going to try and steal this. They're going to drum up, people like Ramaswamy and of course DeSantis. And I don't know about Haley. I think she's DOA. She's dead on arrival as far as her candidacy, but they will try and promote that and they will try and steal the primary. I said this about 2022. I was dead accurate with it. They took it away from, people like Madison Cawthorn. They took it away from a lot of the America First conservatives. So I do think that's going to happen. A couple Rumble rants real quick. PJW says 46-year-old Republican Ohio State rep died suddenly and unexpectedly. I did not see that yet. I have been unplugged all weekend, so today will be a big day of catch up for me. But thanks for pointing that out. C Meadows says the photo looks like the old photo negatives you used to get when real cameras were used and a roll of film was sent off to be developed. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember that. So am I. And I think John is too.
Yeah.
C Meadows again says off topic, but why is Department of Energy making statements on the Wu flu, aka COVID-19 origins after that? We're going to talk about that. You're getting ahead of me. Eval says check out the average age in Nigeria. You'll think differently when they talk about young voters. What's the average age?
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Check out the average age of Nigerians. I don't know. Are they really young or are they really old?
I'd assume they're really young.
I would imagine they have a high infant mortality rate in a place like that.
Real quick, guys, to our next sponsor for the show, guys, MyPillow. Go to mypillow.com/badlands. Buy one, get one free on the MyPillow 2.0. If you haven't tried out this new pillow, it is fantastic. Somehow they bested their previous one. And I don't understand technology and pillows and fabric and whatnot, but whatever they're doing it right. On top of that, they have the Giza sheets, the towels, everything. And my personal favorite, as always, is the MyPillow slippers. Go to mypillow.com. You can support a great patriot, Mike Lindell, and all he's doing for this country and election integrity. And in the process, you can support Badlands as well. mypillow.com/Badlands.
Heck yeah. I ordered the mattress topper at Ash's, my co-host on Why We Vote. At her behest, I ordered the mattress top, so I'm excited to get that in. All right, so let's jump into this story here. Hobbs urges, this is from The Hill, Hobbs urges state bar to conduct ethics review of former Arizona Attorney General. This is so laughable considering all the information that's come out over the last couple of days about Katie Hobbs and especially Brnovich. I should say about Brnovich, but especially about Katie Hobbs. Katie Hobbs can't put a tweet out right now with just getting absolutely ratioed with Cartel Katie and arrest her, lock her up, and all this stuff. And there's going to be a lot more coming out on this, but let's get into this story. So I'm not even going to call her. I'm not going to call her that. Katie Hobbs is urging the Arizona State Bar to launch an ethics investigation of former State Attorney General Mark Brnovich following a report that he worked to hide a report that refuted false claims of voter fraud affecting the state's election in 2020. Whoa. I thought there was no election fraud in Arizona in 2020. So how could he hide something that refuted that if there was no election fraud? Right? That was the whole narrative. So did he put something out that said there was election fraud? No, he didn't.
He refuted he
refuted false claims. He hid a report that refuted false claims. Yeah.
So he worked to hide a report that would have refuted the false claims of voter fraud affecting the state's elections.
Right. But of course, the audit proved that Joe Biden got 93 more votes. So I don't know what Katie Hobbs is talking about and what ethics violation there might be here. But Bo Dull, the general counsel for Hobbs' office, said in a letter to the chief counsel of the state bar obtained by the Washington Post that Brnovich's conduct was, quote, harmful to our democracy, our state, and the legal profession itself. The former AG released an interim report in April 2022 that claimed that voting in the county was, quote unquote, broke, but did not include edits from those investigating that would have refuted his claims. I wonder if those investigating are on John Thaler's list of the deeds and all that stuff. It might be interesting to cross-examine that. He eventually organized a, quote, election review summary, end quote, in September that stated that evidence had not been presented to back up voter fraud claims, but it was not released before Brnovich's term in office ended last month. Multiple audits and lawsuits filed in the aftermath of the 2020 election showed no evidence existed to back up claims from Trump and his supporters that widespread voter fraud or procedural issues cost him a victory in Arizona or any other state. Now, here's the problem with that, John. We learned in the testimony under oath in front of the U.S. Congress that Bill Gates and the Board of Supervisors they archived hundreds of thousands, I think it was 1.2 million files that were deleted from the system and archived. Did they hand those over in the subpoenas? No, I don't believe they did. And so when you sit there and say that there's no proof of fraud, you didn't hand over all of the evidence. In fact, the most important evidence was archived and never given over to the auditors. And so, then you look at the testimony of Scott Jarrett that I talked about in my interview with Emerald Robinson. Scott Jarrett admitted that the problem that occurred in 2022 in Kari Lake's election day race also occurred in 3 previous elections. So when you talk about because they also mentioned procedural issues in this report, that's a procedural issue. The fact that this was known for 3 previous elections, and it's just now that Kurt Olson and Kari Lake were able to get this case before a judge who also appears to be on Thaler's list, is just now, getting some sunlight on it. That's a major problem.
Yeah, there's so many issues here. I mean, it's ridiculous. The people who stole the election for themselves are now in control, technically, and they're the ones basically covering up and prosecuting people who are trying to correct the stolen election. And where are we at with Kari Lake's lawsuit? I mean, it was appealed again, right?
Yeah. So it's going to go to the Supreme Court. I think
of Arizona or Supreme Court.
Yeah, of Arizona. I think we'll have an update on that. I'll have an update. I'm going to be drafting something on that in the coming days. So, but yeah, it is still moving forward. They are going to go to the Supreme Court. We're going to get an interview here pretty soon. So we'll just leave that at that. All right, so moving on to the next story. This is just bizarre, man. Like, this is just happening way too much. And then with everything that just came out over the weekend, that Arizona hearing that we streamed, and the John Thaler, Jacqueline Breger discovery, or accusations, I should say, the accusations that they put forward, which has implications far beyond just Arizona. I think it also included Idaho, Iowa, Illinois, a bunch of other states. U.S. Marshal Service suffers quote-unquote major security breach that compromises sensitive information, senior law enforcement officials say. Now, one of the things that Thaler, I've listened to a lot of his interviews over this weekend, did a lot of driving, 10 hours on the road. And I listened to a lot of these interviews, and there's a reoccurring theme that he keeps talking about, and it's infiltration into our systems. It's not hacking. He doesn't call it hacking. He says specifically that it's infiltration because these people are essentially given access to these systems. Now, I don't know if the U.S. Marshal is part of that, but listen to some of the stuff that they're talking about here. It says the U.S. Marshal Service suffered a security breach over a week ago that compromises sensitive information, multiple senior U.S. law enforcement officials said on Monday. In a statement Monday, U.S. Marshal Service spokesperson Drew Wade acknowledged the breach, telling NBC News, quote, "The affected system contains law enforcement sensitive information, including returns from legal process, administrative information, and personally identifiable information pertaining to subjects of United States Marshal Service investigations, third parties, and certain USMS employees." Wade said the incident occurred February 17th when the Marshal Service, quote, "discovered a ransomware and data exfiltration event affecting a standalone USMS system." He added on Wednesday that the agency briefed senior department officials, quote, "Those officials determined that it constitutes a major incident." A senior law enforcement officer familiar with the incident said the breach did not involve the database involving the Witness Security Program, commonly known as the Witness Protection Program. The official said no one in the Witness Protection Program is in danger because of the breach.
What's that?
What's that?
Do you trust that when they say that?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
What was the date? What was the date of this?
February 17th.
Okay, interesting. I wonder. You see stuff like that, makes you think, okay, they're trying to get access to data from somebody in Witness Protection Program. I wonder who they're after,
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second, John.
He's got some breaking news text going on.
No, actually, it's worse than that. It's my wife calling me while she knows I'm on air, so I'm making sure it's not an emergency. So, yeah, sorry.
Do your duty. Yep.
Yeah, sorry about
No worries,
that.
man.
Yeah, so John Thaler actually talks about the WITSEC program, and he talks about Brittany Chavez, who was his wife. Beyond bizarre, man. So how she was going into WITSEC, and he talks a lot about the WITSEC program, and I can't help but wonder, if a lot of these people that may be rolling over on this, if they've ever been in WITSEC, or what the reasoning for this type of breach is. But I mean, what is going on, man? It seems like every day something's being hacked, whether it's government infrastructure, whether it's our food, our energy. There's something major going on with this cybersecurity in the United States.
100%. I mean, we've seen tons of infrastructure attacks, and I think that's the next phase. Like, we've seen infrastructure attacks on. I mean, think of the situation with our airlines back in was it December, with all those airlines were grounded. We had the train stuff. We see that going on. I still think there's going to be something with the nuclear, nuclear reactors around the country. I bet we'll see something like that. But cyber is really kind of the next keystone that could really take out all sort. I mean, that could cause so many issues. And we've actually seen some of that. Remember the pipeline, the cyber attack where they basically held it hostage for a while.
Yep.
This government has proven its incompetency dealing with this stuff. But I mean, I think there's something more going on behind the scenes. Obviously, I think a lot of this has to do with waking people up. But I would suspect that there will be more instances of this happening in the coming weeks and months.
Yeah, I wonder if this kind of originated so there's a lot of speculation, obviously, about our election system being infiltrated. Obviously, we had the SolarWinds hack in 2021. In 2020, that they say had nothing to do with the elections, but it impacted a lot of major critical infrastructure in the United States. A lot of like the Supreme Court, I think, was part of it. Department of Justice, like a whole bunch of institutions in the U.S. government were impacted by this. And ever since then, it's just been like a downhill. So there's going to be some things coming out in the coming months, maybe 6 months or whatever. There's going to be some things coming out, and I'm wondering if perhaps access was given, and once that access was given, it just kind of, I don't know, man. Like it snowballs from there. I don't know, but there's something bizarre going on. And, between the three petroleum places that burned down over the weekend, the Ukrainian place in Tennessee, which had no impact apparently. Like you said, the food processing, the slaughterhouses, that was 25% of the beef. That was back in 2021. Something's going on, man. I don't know what it is, but something's going on.
I agree with you, man. But a lot of it's speculation, and some of the stuff we're actually going to talk a little bit about on tomorrow's Power Hour. So make sure you guys tune into that tomorrow night, Devolution Power Hour.
Yeah. We folks, we try and keep this strictly news, so we can't really dive into that kind of stuff. I know people are probably sitting there like, it's this, and we can't get into that right now. We're just trying to do the news here. So on that note, let's jump into this story. CNN bets news, not big names, will capture crowds at 9 p.m. Starting this week, the Warner Brothers Discovery-backed news outlet will fill the hour with a range of different special reports, all under the rubric of quote-unquote CNN primetime. Future 9 p.m. hours could include one-on-one interviews with newsmakers, town halls that put government officials in direct contact with the people affected by policy decisions, and other programs that feature surprising quote-unquote gets and scoops. The programming gambit backs away from the tried and true practice of relying on a single anchor or opinion host in that time slot, home to Sean Hannity, Alex Wagner, and Rachel Maddow, and banks instead on creative ways of analyzing the news cycle. The challenge is straight news programming has in recent years not generated the viewership big cable news networks need to outpace their competitors. Fox News Channel, which relies on a block of opinion and talk programs that stretch from 7 p.m. to midnight, regularly lures bigger crowds than either CNN or MSNBC. MSNBC also relies heavily on opinion shows that take up much of its evening grid. Here's the problem, John. We outnumber them. They don't understand this. Like, CNN does not understand this. The only reason CNN has been relevant for the last 10 years is because of the contracts that they have with airports and other public entities, doctors' offices and hospitals always playing CNN news as if it's the truth, the arbiter of truth. When they lose that viewership, they're nothing. Fox News crushes them in every way, shape, or form.
Here's the thing. I hate all mainstream media because everybody has, their biases. CNN, all these leftist news organizations, they built their audiences off of lies, and it stemmed with Russiagate. I mean, going back decades, everybody kind of trusted the mainstream media, the mainstream news, these CNNs, whatever, and they used that trust to start to warp people's opinions and thoughts on things to try to benefit a certain political party or the establishment. And so these organizations like CNN, they basically used people's trust in them to completely lie to them, and that lie has been perpetuated for 4 years, all the way through 2020 was the most secure election in history, and then carrying on beyond that, Trump impeachment, everything, and then propping up the Biden administration, the failing Biden administration. If we had a legitimate mainstream media news, news organizations, there would have been so many issues that we went through, including COVID, including Russia. I mean, all this stuff, even the Ukraine war right now, the Russia-Ukraine war, all this stuff could have been avoided and could have been responded to differently if we had, actual news organizations doing what they should be doing, which is telling the truth. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the truth is inconvenient. It doesn't matter. And the Nord Stream pipeline is a great example of this too. People got all mad because, if we say that the U.S., bombed the Nord Stream, that's Russian propaganda. Well, no, that's not true. Just because it might benefit Russia or it might look bad for the United States, if it's the truth, it needs to be reported on. And that's what the mainstream media has struggled with. CNN is worse at. I think the fact that Fox News is, thriving essentially with their opinion people, Tucker, Hannity, whatever, Ingraham, it's because people have finally kind of realized that they've been lied to by these leftist organizations about everything. And they're starting to wake up, and they haven't found places like us yet. And so they gravitate towards the center right and the Fox Newses. But the CNN, I mean, they say they're going to report news. They're not. They're just going to keep putting out leftist talking points and pushing the narrative further that direction because they have incentive to do so. They're complicit in a lot of these things going back decades. So yeah, I really could care less about CNN and what they say. You're right. When they lose those airport hotel contracts and everything, they're going to be even more relevant than they already are.
Yep. And I can't wait to see, Badlands, growing exponentially and hopefully, maybe this time next year, I mean, we could even have like actual journalists that are on the ground in DC, getting this information for us and not having to take information from outside sources and dig a little bit deeper on it to figure out, contradictions between one report and the other. After the Trump administration, we lost, networks like OANN and Newsmax being allowed in the press conferences and the press pool. And ever since that happened, I mean, now we're pretty much reliant on Peter Doocy to give us the truth in these press conferences. And granted, Peter Doocy asked some tough questions. I'm not going to, take away from him on that, but I can't wait until we actually have some real journalists that are going to ask the tough questions. Yeah. So, all right, let's jump in here to this story. Whistleblower signals he will reveal explosive information on the Biden crime family after being arrested on quote unquote politically motivated charges. The investigation in the Biden crime family foreign business deals might be about to explode. A former associate of Hunter Biden claims he has damning information on the Biden sordid foreign business deals. The Washington Free Beacon revealed on Monday that Gal Luft, the co-director of the Washington-based Institute for the Analysis of Global Security, says he provided details about Hunter Biden, his uncle Jim Biden, and his father Joe Biden to the Trump Justice Department back in March of 2019. Luft was advised to CEFC China Energy, was an advisor to CEFC China Energy, a business conglomerate with extremely close ties to the CCP. CEFC Energy paid Hunter Biden $6 million in 2017 alone to secure energy deals in the United States, according to the Washington Free Beacon. Once Joe Biden assumed power, there was every reason to keep details on his and his family's corruption hidden from the public. According to Luft, the regime had him arrested on bogus weapon trafficking charges last month in an effort to silence him. Now Luft is ready for payback. Luft's lawyers told Biden's DOJ that his client will submit a letter to Congress containing the information Luft previously gave to the FBI during the Trump administration on the Bidens. The Washington Free Beacon reports Luft's threat to name names comes after his arrest in Cyprus on February 16th on charges that he illegally sold weapons to Libya and China. Luft asserts that the United States is seeking his extradition as part of a quote-unquote politically motivated payback for his exposure to the Bidens. He says, quote, "The DOJ is trying to bury me to protect Joe, Jim, and Hunter Biden." Luft said. An Israeli lawyer for Luft claims that his client provided information about Hunter Biden to the FBI in 2019. While Luft claims might otherwise be easily dismissed as a bluff, his connections to the CEFC China Energy suggest that he may know something about the Bidens. So is this going to be another Tony Bobulinski where he comes out with explosive information and nobody bats an eye at it?
Here's the thing. We know that David Weiss has been investigating Hunter Biden since 2018. And we found out about that in December of 2020. It was kept under wraps until December of 2020. And then if you remember, Paul Sperry had a tweet. This was back in January, right after the Biden classified document scandal came out. And there was speculation that these documents were, the discovery of them was pressured by the investigation that David Weiss was doing. And so again, if you read through this thread I put out back then, my conclusion of it here was, if Sperry's tweet is true, then not only has Weiss discovered Joe Biden's involvement in Hunter's business dealings, but he has also discovered the existence of the then VP disclosing classified information in the process of those dealings. If this, what was his name? Luft?
Gal Luft.
Yeah, if this Luft did come forth to the Trump FBI, I believe there's factions within the FBI, just like there's factions everywhere, right? Good and bad. Depending which ones he got to, his information may have already been given and taken into this Weiss investigation, because that is still ongoing. It's still ongoing, and that's likely what stemmed into this, the classified document scandal. There's so many aspects and layers to that investigation, but the fact that it's resurfacing now and in a bigger way with the current Congress that we have digging into this stuff. It's very interesting timing. But I think Bob Alinsky is the same thing. His information that he had was likely already given to Weiss. So yeah, I think we are definitely going to see bigger news, bigger headlines, and I do think eventually this does turn into arrest for these people. The Bidens, they clearly sold out their country using classified information to personally and benefit their own family and other corrupt individuals. So this story is not going away.
I really, really hope you're right. I think you are. I think you are. I have a lot of faith in what's coming. So, on that note, I hope you're right. All right, let's move on to the next story here from the Daily Mail. Christian nurse is, quote, bullied and suspended from NHS course, end quote, by, quote unquote, woke health chiefs after saying, quote, being white doesn't make you racist. Yes, this is not a joke. A Christian nurse was left with crippling anxiety after she was bullied by woke NHS chiefs for saying that being white doesn't make you racist. Amy Gallagher, 34, a mental health nurse from Orpington, Kent, was on a forensic psychology course training to be a psychotherapist at the Portman Clinic, which is part of the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust. In an exclusive interview with Mail Online, Amy has revealed how NHS bosses caused her crippling anxiety after she challenged their racist and offensive views in lectures she was forced to attend. Lecturers at the Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust told her, quote, whites don't understand the world, end quote, and, quote, Christianity is responsible for racism because it's European, end quote, in a series of politically biased talks. One of Tavistock's seminars was even called, quote, whiteness, a problem for our time, end quote, and included a description on the Trust website that, quote, the problem of racism is a problem of whiteness. Now, it goes on to say when Amy challenged these controversial views, she was, quote unquote, bullied by staff and suspended from the course pending an investigation into whether she is safe to work with patients. Almost a year later, no investigation has taken place. As if that wasn't enough, a course lecturer also tried to get her banned from her day job as a practicing mental health nurse. Now, last week, John, Rasmussen had the poll out where they actually had to ask people, do you think it's bad to be white? I can't remember exactly how it was phrased, but do you think that whiteness is a problem and that it's okay to be white? Like, they actually had to poll people. Do you think it's okay to be white? Are you kidding me? If I walked up to a black person and said, do you think it's okay to be black? That would be like, I'd probably get punched in the mouth. I probably, and deservedly so. And the same thing the other way around. I mean, this is insanity where we're at right now.
Dude, this is what they're doing. They push this deliberately. They want people divided. I mean, they try to divide us in every possible way, and race is one of the the biggest lies that they use to do it. 'Cause there is racism. Racism exists, but it's not nearly as prevalent in this country as they make it out to be. But they stoke everybody's emotions based around race because it's the easiest way for them to get people pissed off. It's insanity, man. You're absolutely right. There was a video I saw where they were asking African Americans about, what is the first thing you think of when it comes to white people, and like everything was just completely negative. I wonder if I can find the video. I'll see if I can find it here. But before we do that, I want to get to our next sponsor real quick, if that's okay.
Yeah, go for it.
cbdistillery.com, folks. cbdistillery.com. The most common reasons people benefit from taking CBD is to help with their sleep or their stress, the pain relief, whatever it is. CB Distillery has over 2 million satisfied customers. 90% of the customers reported they sleep better with CBD. 81% said it helps with their stress. 80% said it helps with their aches and pains after physical activity. So whether you struggle with getting a good night's sleep, if you're dealing with too much stress and just need a little more calm, maybe you're suffering from pain and discomfort, maybe you're just frustrated with a certain health concern that's not getting better, try CBD from the source that I use, cbdistillery.com, and you can get 20% off your order when you use promo code John, Jon. So that's cbdistillery.com using promo code JON for 20% off your order. And I'm going to look for that.
While you're doing that, real quick, so that story that I just was talking about, John, took place in I believe it was over in England. But the thing is that this is happening in the United States as well. I have somebody that's very close to me. I don't want to dox them, but they're very close to me, and they went to the University of Florida for nursing. And in the middle of that course, they sent me a prerequisite. Now, this was when Ron DeSantis was saying that CRT is not going to be permitted in universities, public universities in the state, and all this stuff. But here's the thing: is they say that it's not requirement. That's how they get around it. They say it's not a requirement for you to graduate. But excuse me, it's not a requirement that you take the course, but that course is a requirement for you to graduate. So if you want to graduate, you have to take the course, but it's not required for you to take the course. And the crazy thing is in this course, they were asking people like the person I'm talking about is a single parent, a single mother with 3 kids, and is able to, go to school to be a nursing, already has an MBA. I mean, just an incredible accomplishment academically. And sitting there reading this saying that she's oppressed because she's a woman and because like all this stuff, and that's the CRT. It's not just race. It also extends to feminism and that kind of thing. So when you see that, it's crazy, and that's just how they get around it. Is they say it's not required, but if you want to graduate, you have to have this credit.
Can I play this video?
Go for it.
This is having to do with CRT. This is why CRT is an issue. They asked these people the question, what are white people superior at? And this is their answer. This is about 1 minute and 20 seconds long. Check this out. Let me know if you can hear it.
What are white people superior at?
What exactly are white people superior at?
They're real good at violence.
Violence, genocide. It's like stealing people's lives just because they feel like it.
If you are white and you know this is happening and you say nothing, then you're a killer too.
What exactly are white people superior at?
Insecurity, pretending,
fear,
being fearful of nothing, being ignorant,
blame,
letting their egos control their every move, superior at being dicks.
What exactly are white people superior at?
Oppression, gaslighting,
lack of empathy,
intellectualizing oppression.
Did I say oppression?
What exactly are white people superior at?
Taking what's not there, taking shit,
taking our ideas,
copycatting,
gentrification,
appropriating things that do not belong to them,
taking over other people's cultures and making you believe that they invented it.
Maybe they're thinking of it as repurposing. It's like recycle and repurpose.
As my grandma would say, the white folk, they'll take it if you don't copyright it.
They are very good at destruction of land, destruction of people, destruction of humanness.
Republican, whether you're Democrat, whether you're conservative, like white people are really good at upholding white supremacy.
How about claiming that, they are actually a whole separate race when actually white DNA comes from the Black female?
So what exactly are white people superior?
Honey, lying, stealing, and cheating.
Manipulation. Withholding information.
Lying, telling lies.
Isn't that racism right there?
I mean, that's the definition of racism, especially since more than half of that was absolute complete BS. The violence was my favorite one when more than 51% of murders are committed by Black males who make up 13% of the population. I mean, how are the whites the one? I don't know, man. That is like the most racist minute. Yeah, I don't want to get into that either because that's just promulgating something that doesn't need to be disseminated across. We don't need to be talking about that. Let's focus on what's good about each other. And that, oh my goodness.
That's what CRT pushes right there.
Yes.
I mean, it's.
I can see that. I can see that at some point, John. I could see something similar to that being played in like middle schools across the country.
Yep.
On the track.
If it's not already.
And that's unfortunate. That's a good segue into this right here. So there's a new website out, 1792 Exchange. 1792 Exchange has assessed 1,000 plus companies, policies, practices, and other relevant criteria to determine the likelihood that a company will cancel a contract or a client or boycott, divest, or deny services based on views or beliefs. And so you can go to this website, 1792exchange.com, and you can actually see the risk levels. So you can see here, I've sorted them by high risk to low risk, and Alphabet tops the list. Google, Mattel is up there. Let's see, Honeywell is up there. I was actually surprised about that one. Berkshire, Twitter's up there. Now, I don't know if that's the way Twitter wants to be, but it's up there. YouTube, of course, in ties with ABC. Etsy, who literally promoted Black businesses. I was on Etsy, and I really should have sued them. I had an Etsy shop, about 5 years ago, and I really should have sued them when I saw this because it's still active. But they were actually promoting like Black businesses over everybody else. Like if you were a Black-owned company, it didn't matter what your ratings were. It didn't matter what your pricing or anything else was. You automatically went to the top of the search engine. And so when you see this stuff, and then on the flip side, we have
Can you say one more time? What does this project do? I think I missed.
1792 Exchange. It ranks like over 1,000 companies, top companies that you probably interact with day to day, and it talks about their likelihood to cancel somebody. I want to read it directly because I don't want to put words in their mouth. The likelihood a company will cancel a contract or a client, or boycott, divest, or deny services based on views or beliefs.
Okay. And the lower risk means that you're safe to not get canceled.
Correct. They're not woke CRT based. So you got companies like O'Reilly Auto Parts, not a whole lot of, big companies that we would know every day. Waste Management's up there, Millennial Bank. Let's see, who else is pretty big that we would know? Barnes and Nobles is up there. I was actually surprised to see Barnes and Nobles. Farmers Insurance, Fannie Mae. Ooh, I'd stay away from them. Publix, that's my grocery store down here. So, just an idea for you guys. If you're going to fight back against this ESG and the woke CRT bull crap that's going on, that's a good resource. 1792exchange.com.
That's awesome.
All right, so let's jump into this story here. This was mentioned in a Rumble rant earlier. So John Kirby on the Department of Energy lab leak report, quote, "There's not a consensus right now in the U.S. government about exactly how COVID started. The U.S. Energy Department came out and claimed that COVID was released from a lab, but no American entity has yet to claim that the release was intentional." It says, quote, "The new report highlights how different parts of the intelligence community have arrived at disparate judgments about the pandemic's origin. The Energy Department now joins the FBI in saying the virus likely spread via a mishap at a Chinese laboratory. 4 other agencies, along with a national intelligence panel, still judge that it was likely the result of a natural transmission, and 2 are undecided," end quote. This comes from a Wall Street Journal report over the weekend. Quote, this is from John Kirby's press conference. "On the Department of Energy's finding the lab leak most likely caused the pandemic, how should Americans understand China's response, swatting down this information?" of course, was asked by Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich. And he said, quote, "There is not a consensus right now in the U.S. government about exactly how COVID started." So you've got now the DOE and the FBI who are actually using common sense, looking at the facts and saying this did not start when a pangolin kissed a bat and, transferred 900 kilometers up north to Wuhan from where I can't remember the name of where it originated. They said it, but I'm referring to Jon Stewart when he famously came on Stephen Colbert's show and you made fun of Stephen Colbert for 10 minutes about the origins of Wuhan. But this is what we're at now, where the Department of Energy and the FBI are coming out and saying it originated in a lab, but apparently everybody else in the U.S. government can't get their head out of the sand, and they still believe that it originated naturally, which is a complete load of crap.
This is honestly nothing new. We knew this already.
Yes.
I mean, we knew this already. So like, I haven't even been spending that much time on it because it's already been known. I mean, it's great news that the mainstream media has finally come around on this. The most interesting part of this, and Zach, Red Pill 78 last time made a good point. Interesting point is they finally made this turn, like they can blame it on Russia now. I mean, because remember, it was racist to blame it on Russia before. It was xenophobic, or sorry, China. It was xenophobic to blame it on China previously. But now, after China comes out and is potentially backing Russia in the war and calling for peace with the Russia-Ukraine war, all of a sudden now it's okay to let's blame COVID on China.
Bingo. And Chinese spy balloons over the United States, the potential of going to war, all that stuff. And then, something we talked about last week, John, China coming out and trying to be the diplomats that are negotiating a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, a position that normally, traditionally has been the United States in the flexing of our, proverbial muscle, so to speak. That's usually what the United States would do, come out and do that. But now China is taking up that role because the United States, again, has their head up their ass, not the sand this time, but their heads up their ass about backing Ukraine in this war against Russia. And China coming out with the logical thought here. I mean, look, they already made people like us, oh, you guys are Putin sympathizers. No, we're not Putin sympathizers. We're just realists. And we look at, all the information that's available, and we don't write everything that's anti-Russia off as propaganda, or pro-Russia rather, as propaganda. Same thing with China here. If China is trying to negotiate not starting World War III, I'm okay with that. I have no problem with that because we're not doing it. In fact, we're moving in the opposite direction towards World War III. And like
honestly,
go ahead.
I think sorry to interrupt. I think that's exactly why they're doing it, is because they know the United States is moving the opposite direction. And so it's basically almost calling their bluff. Like, hey, we're going to put this out there and everybody can watch now the Biden administration, NATO, the West. We're calling for peace. We're trying to negotiate peace. China's going to try to play the good guys here, but the West is not going to accept, and they're going to keep pushing us further into war. I think it's part of this. They knew that was going to be the outcome. And so that's why they did it, to make the West look like idiots in a way.
Yep. And here we have one of the most unqualified press secretaries ever, just skating all around this with, I mean, just listen to cringe here.
Are there any plans for the administration to release an unclassified version of the Energy Department's COVID origin report? And if not, why is the administration choosing to keep that assessment classified?
So again, I'm going to just repeat my National Security Council colleague who said that he don't want to get ahead don't want to confirm a story. So I'm certainly not going to answer that from here. What I can tell you and reiterate from here, as he has said, as the National Security Advisor has said many times on the airwaves yesterday, which is that the president wants to get to the bottom of this because he thinks it's incredibly important to figure out, to get a sense of where COVID-19 originated from.
Does anybody actually think that Joe Biden has any desire to get ahead of where the COVID originated from? Not a single person out here actually believes that crap, right?
That is bogus. Let me find let me see if I can find it. Because back in it was back in was it 20? I'm trying to find that exact, because right away Trump is the one who's originally set up a group of people, like I think it was with the DNIs or the State Department. They were looking into the origins of COVID. He established like a group to specifically find out where it came from. And then Biden, when he got into office, he disbanded the group. And then a week later, he comes out and reestablishes a group to find the origins. Like it didn't make any sense. I could find the story here. It just might take me a minute. And 1 second here. Yeah, so dang it, I can't find it here. I'll find it and have it ready for tomorrow.
All right. Well, I want to play this this clip here. So this was I talked earlier in this show about myself being on Emerald Robinson and Kara Castronovo, two Gateway writers, and then we have this incredible. Just watch this clip. This is from Jordan Conradson when he was at a press conference with the unlawfully illegitimate Attorney General in Arizona, Chris Mays. So here, check this out, John.
Okay. Attorney General, 73-year-old rancher George Allen Kelly, he's facing first-degree murder charges for shooting or allegedly shooting and killing an illegal immigrant trespassing on his property and possibly threatening him. Why is the state doing more to protect the criminals that bring the drugs behind you into our country than to protect American citizens?
I'm not sure I understand your question, and I think that's not the subject of today's.
Well, so you're not going to answer the question.
We'll come back. I'll come back to you, but I don't think it's the subject of today.
You got a 74-year-old man that can't see, and he takes some guy out coming across. Supposedly early in the day he fired warning shots. We don't know all the details, but he took some guy out. They got him on a first-degree murder and $1 million cash bail. And in Mark Lamb's County and Pinal County, they got a guy killed his mother, killed his father, killed his sister, and decapitated the baby. $500,000 bail. I want you to get Burning Man over this, because this is what's happening in this country.
This was a 3-year-long, actually longer than that, operation. It was a partnership.
Was everything seen here found in Arizona?
I'm going to leave that detail up to my colleagues who have those details.
You've said this is a federal government responsibility securing our border, but the federal government's failing. Why?
Actually, I haven't said that. I think it's
on your campaign website.
I think it is.
It's actually on your campaign website.
Actually,
so you have said it.
Actually, that's not what I said on that website. That's not what I've said. I intend to discuss this with the Biden administration.
The border is secure. The border is closed.
Are you open to using Arizona's sovereign power to protect the state and the millions of lives across the country, like building the wall, for example?
Again, that's a federal issue, and I'm not going to address that right now.
Do you really think this is disrupting anything from the cartels?
Yeah, I do. It deprived the cartels of $13 million in revenue. You heard that this morning.
Government officials believe the combined annual revenue of all Mexican cartels is more than $500 billion.
Wait, Attorney General, can you answer my first question about the rancher, the 73-year-old rancher?
Talk about the drugs today.
Well, I get that, but it's an illegal immigration issue at the unsecure border.
I will take the one in your left.
So there you have it. Jordan Conrad's in there just spitting fire at Chris Mays. First off, the federal responsibility, it's literally directly from her website. That border security is federal responsibility. And she goes on to say that the federal government is responsible for building the wall. You know, that's not her job as the Attorney General of Arizona, which it's not technically her job, but it is. It could be a sovereign state issue there. But then the crazy part is, after everything that's come out, the accusations made by John Thaler and Jacqueline Breger about this involvement of the Sinaloa cartel and certain individuals in Arizona being tied to that. And now you see they're bragging about $13 million of fentanyl taking off the streets, and the cartel is making $500 billion a year. $500 billion, and they're bragging about $13 million. That would be, John, the equivalent of you or I walking down the street and like a dime falling out of our pocket and being like, oh my God, look at that. I'm not going to make it anymore. I lost a dime.
It's nuts, man. I mean, whatever's going on in Arizona is just completely... It's completely corrupt. I want to. It's hard to speculate about this story from Thaler and everything because these are some just bombastic claims, man. I mean, these are massive claims. I can't imagine people would put claims like that forth if they weren't true. But we still got to do our due diligence and dig into it. We can't just accept any of this at face value. I know a lot of people are, pushing these stories. And a lot of people are like almost upset with us for not covering them more in depth. But it's the same thing like the Brunson case. That's kind of what I equate it to. A lot of people are like, oh, the Brunson case, this is going to be it. This is going to overturn the election. This is going to get Trump back. This is going to get all these people arrested for election fraud. And we were like, okay, guys, let's slow our roll. Let's dig into it a little bit. We're pretty sure that what they're asking, as a remedy is not feasible here. And people got mad at us for saying that. But that's exactly what happened. They got turned down twice. The same thing here, guys. We got to just slow our roll, use caution, and dig into it. We are I'm hoping to actually interview both Jacqueline and Thaler at some point. I got Jacqueline's contact info, and so we'll do our best to dig into this ourselves. But yeah, it's crazy. Whatever's going on down there, we know things are off. The election fraud is a big deal. These claims could absolutely be genuine, and if they are, there's going to be some heads rolling, so to speak, because this is a huge deal. You're muted.
Oh, I had another power surge. I had to reset right there. So going back to that 500 billion that the cartels make annually, do you know where that would put them on the list of U.S. states by GDP?
No idea.
15th.
No way.
Yeah, the cartels, not Mexico, not all of Mexico. One illegal operation would be the 15th highest GDP in the United States.
Insane, man.
It would be ahead of Colorado, Tennessee, Maryland, Arizona. It would be higher than Arizona. Arizona's GDP is about $463 billion a year, and the cartels are $500 billion.
Insane, man.
Yeah, it's insane. So when you think about what Thaler is saying and what what they're saying and alleging, I mean, it sounds crazy. It sounds like, some like, I don't know, NCIS or FBI like drama series, something on 24. But in reality, it's very likely that they have this type of infiltration. So, yeah,
it would not be surprising at all.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into this story right here. Judicial Watch. Los Angeles County confirms removal of 1.2 million ineligible voters from voter rolls as part of a lawsuit settlement. Judicial Watch announced earlier that LA County removed 1.2 million ineligible voters from its rolls as term of a settlement. Judicial Watch sued on its own behalf and behalf of 4 other lawfully registered voters in LA and the Election Integrity Project in California, a public interest group in monitoring California's voter rolls. Under the terms of the settlement, Los Angeles County sent out 1.6 million address confirmation notices in 2019 to voters listed as quote unquote inactive on its voter rolls. Under the Federal National Voter Registration Act, the NVRA, voters who do not respond to the notices and who do not vote in the following 2 federal elections must be removed from the voter rolls. The settlement also required an update to the state's online NVRA manual to make it clear that ineligible names must be removed and to notify each California county that they are obliged to do this. Now, why can't we just issue on our driver's license, like when you personally go to get your license, you can register to vote if you are lawfully allowed to. If you want to vote, you have to prove citizenship, whatever it may be. You have to prove where you live, that kind of thing. But then you use your ID and you just have it noted on there that you're registered to vote. You've lawfully met the requirements to vote. And when you go vote in person, you show your ID. Get rid of this ERIC system. Got to get rid of this. All the voter databases, they're all manipulated. I mean, if the U.S. Marshal Service is being hacked, and the energy company on the East Coast that was hacked, do you not think that the voter rolls can be hacked? I mean, this is insane to think
100%.
that. Yeah, this is crazy.
Especially LA County is it's the biggest county in the country. Dean Logan, I did a whole dig on Dean Logan and his corrupt, like he's in bed with Smartmatic. He's good buddies with one of the guys who got a contract over there. I mean, there's all sorts of shenanigans going on in LA County. Actually, after I released my article on Dean Logan in LA County, he moved his Twitter to private. Yeah. So interesting stuff.
Damn. Did you get into it first? Like, are you listed as a follower first?
No, I actually I wonder if it's still private or not. I haven't checked on that in a while.
Well, while you're looking,
his account is locked still. His
Yeah.
tweets are protected.
Well, then we get this story from the Daily Mail exclusive. Chicago inmates claim jail guards are pressuring them to illegally vote in the mayoral election. This is Lori Lightfoot, of course. Chicago inmates have claimed they are being pressured to illegally vote in the city's mayoral election. The inmates, some who are accused of murder, argued guards at Cook County Jail were pushing them to vote despite some being registered in a different jurisdiction. They claim the guards were receiving orders from higher up and, quote, just doing what I'm told, end quote, when confronted over the move. It comes amid fears of ballot harvesting as insiders claim the jail was the, quote unquote, ideal environment due to no cameras or election observers. There's a video here if you want to check that out, and they're actually interviewing an inmate about this. He says, quote, I said, but you should, because if I'm registered to vote somewhere else like I am, you are asking me and enticing me to vote even though I'm registered somewhere else, and that's a felony. I can't be voting in 2 different jurisdictions, and that's a quote from one of the inmates that was part of this coercion. So, yeah, you had a little bit of a hiccup there for Mayor Lightfoot over there in Chicago trying to register.
She looks like she's going to lose.
Dude, she's like polling at 13%. It would be, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if she ends up winning because election fraud, but she's not in first place right now. She's 13%, third place, I believe. And the fourth place person is like right on her heels.
Yeah. Well, here's another one. Have you seen this story right here out of El Salvador?
Yeah, we covered it a little bit yesterday too.
Okay, then we're going to jump out of it. I'm not going to cover it because I didn't get to watch all of it yesterday. So, and then the last story, just a little bit of fun here. Mexican president lights the internet on fire by sharing photo of a creature he says is a mystical elf sitting in a tree.
Yeah, we covered this yesterday too. It's such a joke.
So, okay, but here's what I wanted to talk about. So according to someone I follow over here on Twitter, this is a 2-year-old photo that just keeps getting repurposed. So I haven't been able to confirm that yet, but yeah, there's 2 of them. I know you said that you didn't know there were 2 of them, but there's
I haven't seen that other picture.
There's 2 of them. I don't know if it's side by side or what, but it's a different tree. I don't know what the heck that is. It's definitely Emily Kors or Rachel Levin. Not sure. One of the 2.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. If this is some sort of like distraction tactic or something, well, the fact that he's putting it out there is just weird. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we got a couple Rumble rants. C. Meadows says the ballots for 2024 should reflect Uniparty and Constitutional Party. The Uniparty has no interest in upholding oath of office and the Constitution. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Miss Mo 8 says, hey, John Terry Donaldson, OIG of DOE, has an interesting background in certain crimes. The DOE would fall into COG, meaning she most likely conducting oversight, probably watching the water. From Miss Mo 8.
I'll check it out. Thank you.
And I think that's it for Rumble rants.
Awesome.
Oh,
Well,
no.
everybody,
There's a couple
more?
more. I'm sorry. Yeah, there's a couple more. We'll get these read. PJWO says at CanCon, what happens to a bullet that is shot up into the air? The rancher said he heard a gunshot before he picked up his rifle. The guys could have shot that one. Ballistics. He says he shot over their head, not straight up in the air. Believe it or not, a bullet shot straight up in the air is not necessarily lethal coming down, because when the bullet comes back down, it hits terminal velocity. So just because it leaves the muzzle at 3,000 feet per second, whatever it is, when it comes back down, it hits terminal velocity, which I think is like 128 miles per hour. So yeah, it could do damage to you, but it's not likely going to kill you. It's not. Now, shooting at an angle over somebody's head, whoever's on the other side of that, yeah, that bullet's going to have tremendous velocity. So, but he's saying that he shot over their heads. Look, it's Arizona law that if somebody's trespassing on your property, that you lawfully are allowed to engage them at that point. And if they had AKs, like is being alleged, that's definitely a problem. And the craziest part, John, is that they're charging him with first-degree murder. That means he premeditated this. He said, like, they have to have evidence that he had a contingency plan or some sort of a plan in effect that this person specifically was going to come on his property, and when he does, he is going to shoot them. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms as to how this guy was aware of his trespassing on his property. Was he a drug smuggler? Is he a drug, is he running drugs and he's been on his property many times before? A lot of questions in this case, man.
It's interesting, man. It's completely unconstitutional. I don't know.
Yep. C. Meadows, nobody's suing over Breger's AZ report. If they sue, there's discovery, which the corrupt would not want. Yeah, that's something I brought up in my interview with Emerald Robinson, is that we don't know exactly what's going on, but nobody in the Hobbs campaign is touching this, and Hobbs cannot put something on Twitter without this being the number one thing in the responses. It could be completely unrelated to this. Well, everything's been completely unrelated to this, and her Twitter is getting destroyed with these allegations and asking her to comment and all that stuff, and she's still ignoring it. So that to me says either get some litigation out against Thaler and Breger, which I don't think they will, or at least come out and publicly refute it, and they've done none of it. Counterinsurgent says Flynn just now in Twitter, incrementalism, a form of fifth generation warfare, is where the population is fed a specific sequence of information over time that is designed to move minds one step at a time incrementally. Agreed. And we're going to have General Flynn on our sit rep show Thursday night at 9 p.m. So thank you for that segue. That's our last Rumble rant.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. We appreciate y'all tuning in. If you are a business and you would like to advertise on Badlands Media, please reach out to Kitty. Her email is ads.badlandsmedia@proton.me. We are looking to work with businesses here, and we have our website launching here soon, and we want to make sure we get you guys all on there. We have a nice little marketplace idea that we're going to be putting forth. Otherwise, yeah, guys, we will likely see you all tomorrow on Badlands Daily again, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Real quick, John. Today at 5 p.m., we're going to have attorney Stephanie Lambert on our Why We Vote podcast here on Badlands at 5 p.m. with Ash Epp. Stephanie Lambert is the attorney that's working with Eric Spakeen, who was the first person to testify in the Arizona hearing. And he's the one that testified about the 36,000 counterfeit ballots in Arizona, as well as all his discoveries in Pennsylvania over the last few months. So definitely going to want to tune into that podcast this afternoon.
Looking forward to that. Cool. Well, thanks, Brian. We'll see you tomorrow morning, man. See you, everybody.